Welcome again to the Booked Solid podcast, a place for anyone with clients. We have a fantastic returning guest for you today with Mike Shikashio. He is the leader of the Aggression in Dogs Conference and a great expert both in the dog training world as well as running and growing a client-based business. Thank you for joining us again today, Mike.
Thanks for having me, Hans. It's great to be back.
Yeah. It was about a year ago that we first talked, and it was a favorite conversation and an early one to the podcast. So it's wonderful to have you back. So, new year, 2024. I'd love to start just by saying, do you have any New Year's business resolutions?
I wouldn't say they're new to New Year's, but I think every year, actually, December and January are like the time of the year I really focus on all of the planning for the next year, because it's actually a good time for dog trainers too, because December tends to be a slower month because everybody's celebrating the holidays and stuff. And then it picks up again in January when everybody has their puppies that they need help with that they got over Christmas. But for me, it goes back to the same thing, just getting myself more time through getting more efficient with my business and finding efficiency tools like Pocket Suite to help me with all of the daily tasks and things that I find myself repeating and doing. And because it's always my goal to buy myself more time, because that's what's most important to me, is more time to be more creative and do things I want. So yeah, that's really what it boils down to for me, is just getting myself that time so I can enjoy my life more and have more time to be creative in business.
It's amazing what you can do with time.
Yeah.
Do you have an example of something where you used to do it by hand and it took a ton of time and you figured out a way to make it automated or more efficient?
Do you have some time to talk about that?
No, I think these are great stories for people to hear. I really do.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, one of the things that I had a difficult time actually doing earlier on in my business was hiring people or finding contractors to do things, because, as a sort of a control freak, you want to make sure everything's done right, all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, but that can actually slow you down because it takes away from doing the other things. So, answering emails, for instance, or coming, emails that come in about certain questions, you find yourself doing that. You can kill a lot of time, really take away a lot of valuable time, or something like that. So a few years ago, I hired an assistant to help me start doing those little things. And that just those little things, you just be like, oh, I've got to actually start paying somebody now. So I've got to worry about that. But you don't realize just how much that allows you to generate income and revenue in other ways, because now you have that time freed up to spend more on those things. And you always hear that rule of thumb, you kind of have to value your time at a certain hourly rate, whatever it is. And if it costs less for you to find somebody to do that for you, it's a no-brainer. Like, just get that person to do that same thing for you. That's going to cost you 1/3 or 1/4 or whatever you would consider your time worth. Now that frees up more time to make money doing those other things. So
Yeah, personal assistants in business are a big one. People are always wondering,
yeah.
when is the right time?
Mm-hmm.
Can I afford it? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And there's multiple routes. Some people like having someone nearby them and who they work with and maybe can show up at their place of work. Other people are having great, responses doing, a remote personal assistant who's just doing everything digitally. Often they work overseas. Which route did you go?
Mm-hmm. All remote. So I don't have anybody that lives near me at all.
Okay.
Yeah, I have somebody that's in the Philippines. I have
Great.
people, working really all over the world, helping me. And that's the beauty of technology, right? Is that, especially in the business that I'm in, is that it's all online teaching and seminars and workshops. It's conducive to an environment where you can have somebody working for you from anywhere, as long as they have a computer and an internet connection, right? And so I kept adding on. I kept just adding on more contractors to do different roles and take on different tasks. And I really felt the value of that, I would say, over 2023, because I had so much extra time to do things like travel and explore new ideas and collaborate on other businesses. And so it's been a really beneficial year for that. And I would have never would have had that time if I didn't making that
So
leap
obviously
into
you're not going to meet, a remote personal assistant living and working in the Philippines, at your local networking event. Any
Mhm.
advice on finding a good one, not getting, scammed by someone overseas, asking the right
Yeah.
questions?
I would say referrals. Like the person that's working for me now doing the email thing is was referred to me. So
Okay, great.
I think yeah, and a lot of these personal assistants, virtual assistants, actually work for multiple people. They kind
Right.
of do different tasks. So just reach out to your colleagues or anybody else in the similar position. Who do you use or who do you work with? And they often have recommendations. I would highly recommend that because, like as you said, Hans, that you have to be careful kind of what you end up with. You don't want the wrong person. So yeah, referrals and then a little interview and then a little test run on what they do. But
Yeah,
it's
it
not that hard.
absolutely is a big enough trend that if you ask enough people for a referral or if they're doing this, you could probably get one, and that's a great way to do it. All right. So
Yeah.
maybe you get like a remote personal assistant, maybe you find another efficiency thing. Um, do you have any big things you're dreaming about for 2024? What are you going to use the new time that you open up?
Yeah, so a lot more travel and a lot more focusing on dogs around the world. So I will be doing a lot of traveling in 2024. I'm going to, I forget how many countries now, at least 8 or 9 different countries next year for speaking engagements. And one of the things I'm doing is I actually just got this. I'll show you here these Rode mics that are basically for your phone, but I'm kind of got to do like this series of these little mics that you bring, and then you can interview anybody. And what I'd like to do is showcase the behavior of dogs from around the world. So the culture of dogs and the culture of people as well. So a little bit like Anthony Bourdain, but around dogs instead of food, and just talking about. But really, for me, it's I think important for me to help people understand what dogs are going through in other countries and other locations so they can start to understand their own dogs and the behavior and what can influence behavior. And so people can learn about the culture of people too in other countries. I think it'll be a really neat way of showcasing that as well. But that'll be it's sort of something that I'm not necessarily looking to build any business around, but I think it'll be good anyways for from a marketing standpoint exposure. But for me, it's more of a project of love. I want to just focus on something now that I have the time. And why not? Right? Since I'm going to be traveling, getting paid to travel to these different countries, why not take advantage
Yeah,
of the
and
time?
showing
You know?
something true about dogs, which is,
Yeah.
your expertise. Um, I have a glimmer of what you're talking about because I went to Istanbul last summer
Mhm.
on a vacation, and they have a tradition of having, street dogs there that sort of the
Yeah.
neighborhood takes care of that are allowed to roam free. And I swear they are better behaved than most like American house
Much,
dogs.
much better.
And
Yeah.
like
I mean,
it seems like magic. How does that even happen? We
yeah.
try so hard with a house dog to
Yeah.
make them well behaved, and here are these street dogs being taken care of by the neighborhood that like sit on command, don't do anything, or just sweet dogs.
Yeah, it's all about socialization, social exposure, which most dogs in a lot of these developed countries where they're confined all day don't get that socialization. So that's definitely one of the things I want to showcase. But like, hey, we got to get our dogs out a little bit more than we are, and get especially at an early age because that's the only way they learn how to navigate all these different environments.
Yeah, people get so fearful, I guess, about exposing their dog. They have one bad experience and they don't want to let them
Yeah,
go back or go out again. But you see dogs in these other environments, or I guess other dog cultures, and they can
hmm
handle a lot as a
yeah.
you know as
Yeah,
a
because day in and day out, they're exposed to different things that they have to learn how to handle, on a daily basis. And usually, it's not going to have that profound effect people are worried about. But not that there's anything wrong about advocating for our dogs and making sure they're safe, but that can be kind of overdone in some ways, and which then again reduces the dog's world and their lack of social, creates a lack of socialization, a social exposure, which then creates problems on down the line. So it's uh it's kind of like having a you take a pigeon and instead of being in Central Park where it's around people and knows how to get away from people walking and kids running after and trying to grab it. Imagine if we just had pigeons and we just said we're going to keep pigeons in the home in a crate in a cage for the first 2 years and finally we're going to go visit Central Park on vacation or something so you can see the other pigeons in Central Park, right? And imagine how much of a difficult time that pigeon's going to have navigating Central Park for the first time and after 2 years. So same thing for dogs. If we don't expose them, they're going to have problems later on. So that's why these street dogs and free roaming dogs are often just living life happy, and they know how to navigate the world. So
Is there
yeah.
anywhere you're most excited to travel and talk about some of these issues in this year?
Or this year rather, is I'm going to be a lot in Eastern or Europe rather, and so I'll be France, Germany, Switzerland, Sweden, Netherlands. So in that part of the world, not a ton of street dogs in those areas, so different kind of culture, but also a much less, I think, tolerance for dogs that bite. It'll be
Okay.
interesting to see what that looks like. So you'll see, I think. Explanations of why the culture doesn't tolerate dogs like we see in the U.S. or something where dogs are biting or having issues. So, yeah, I'm excited to visit all of them. I was in France last year, so you kind of I know a little bit more about the dog culture there. And interesting thing is, same thing. You see all these dogs out and about in the cafes and restaurants. You don't see the same level of reactivity or dogs having a tough time in those environments. Most of those dogs are really good at navigating busy streets in Paris, and they're their own dogs. They're on leash with people, but it's really wonderfully behaved.
Yeah. No, I've definitely seen that as well. Being at the, you know, London pub for a Sunday roast, and there's like a dog under every table,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
hanging
But
out.
you don't see that in states because most places dogs can't go in the restaurant unless they're a service dog. So it's
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's tough.
I wonder if you could talk a little bit about, this evolution, because I think a lot of people, when you're in kind of the grind of just booking clients, and because
Hmm.
you started just training dogs, and specializing in these aggression cases, like how do you kind of evolve so that you can free up enough time for some of these passion projects and make them profitable, and sort of start dreaming about a conference, or
Yeah.
whatever it is that someone can kind of have, is sort of a natural build on of their uh, you know having clients career.
I think you should, at any stage of your business, you should always be thinking, what can I do to streamline this task or make this task more efficient? What can I do to ensure that I'm not repeating this over and over by myself when somebody else could be doing it, or some system can be in place that will replicate what I'm doing here daily. That can be at the start of your business. You could be like, I'm going to be a dog trainer. I'm going to start tomorrow. Your mindset should be around that, because that's the growth mindset. Is how because either way, if you don't, you're going to be stagnant, because you're going to be doing the same activities every day, and you'll never actually find yourself having time to grow or to be creative or to create new things. So you should always be thinking in that way of, what can I do to streamline this task, whether it's emails, whether it's writing a training plan, whether it's creating content, posting to social media, whatever it is. If you can find a way to make that easier and quicker and more efficient without losing the quality of it, that's how I found myself growing. And that took a little time because, again, I'm a micromanager, a
Yeah.
perfectionist too. And you have to remember that it doesn't need to be perfect all the time. I mean, obviously, we don't want to lose the quality, but nobody's going to notice a little small spelling error or something like that in an email. Sometimes you just got to get it out there and get it done. And when you start to shift in that way, I found that's how I really started to take off with the growth of the business, because again, more time to create more content and think about new ideas is the only way I was able to shift forward. So 2023 has been a great year for me in terms of just being able to think about things I can grow for 2024 to really expand the business, because I had that free time. I had the time
Yeah.
to pursue those
And I
things.
think, it's one thing to save, 5, 10 hours a week with an
Hmm.
efficiency. But I think for a lot of people, the temptation is to immediately, cycle those hours back into the grind, setting up, booking more
Hmm.
clients,
Yeah.
just the busy work that goes with running a small
Yeah.
business. Do you find that you have to set aside some of those hours you're saving for, more I don't know, thinking, creative time. I don't. Do you even call it a
Definitely.
particular thing?
Yeah. I think, obviously having a good schedule is important, setting up your calendar well, but you should block off time for creative thinking. Because if you don't, you get I'm so guilty of that, Hansa. Like my first,
Yeah.
5-10 years in the business, I was like, because I was always like that my whole life, like the grind, like you got to do 100-hour weeks to succeed. You've got to, if you're doing 100 hours, the next person's doing 40, and you're doing 60 more hours than them. But that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to do better. You could just be wasting a lot of time on busy work, like, cleaning up your desktop, or, little things you feel like you need to do to be busy, to put that grind in, but it aren't actually necessary. And that's a hard mindset to get out of, because if you're just looking at grinding and being busy, it doesn't necessarily mean you're being efficient or productive. So I found setting yourself dedicated hours, be like, okay, during whatever, 10 to 12 after my workout or something in the morning, I'm not going to look at emails. I'm going to shut everything off. I'm going to just concentrate on learning this thing or whatever project I want to do. That's so crucial. You have to set those hours aside, or else they won't happen, because then you go back into busy mode. I'm just going to, oh, I have some free time. I'm going to just, oh, I've got an email I can answer. I can do this or that. So dedicated time, sort of like what Bill Gates does, like locks himself away with books for a week, right? Every year or something like that. um, Same thing for us, but more on a micro level, like once a week or once a month or something like that.
And it feels like, at least for you, it's been a way of, staying connected to the passion piece of it, of your chosen
Hmm.
career, that it's led you into some really cool things around, dogs, what you love about dogs, dog behavior. And even if you're in a different career, like usually there's something that attracted you to what you're doing. And if you spend time
Hmm.
being creative, it gets fun again. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. Yeah. You, because here's the thing that's going to happen is, if you're always busy and grinding, you're going to get burnt out, especially in the dog training world, right? Because especially for what I do too, in aggression, there's a lot of emotions involved. Not all the cases go well all the time. And so you will find yourself burning out, and then you end up losing the passion, which then ends up killing your business, because you don't want to do it anymore. You're like, you're struggling to get up just to go see those clients for the day. And that's a terrible place to be in, because not only do you not have the passion, it's affecting you physically and mentally. So many detriments to that. So that's why it's so crucial to spend time for thinking, or just doing nothing, even, right? Because thinking is going to happen when you do nothing. So it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be focused on one particular project during that downtime, but you got to have that space to think. So
Yeah, it's the
scheduling.
snap crackle pop factor.
Yeah.
And once you lose that, nothing works as well. It's true. You have
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
love your life, love your career a little bit, or it just doesn't come together
Yeah.
in that real way.
And I think it's important to note, though you can lose passion. It's very normal. You're not gonna be like, oh, I love this thing all the time,
Sure.
right? You're gonna have ups and downs depending on your week. And that's important to note as well. Like, I don't want people to get discouraged. Like, as somebody listening right now, maybe like, I just don't feel like that. Maybe I should look for a new career. Well, maybe that's the truth of it. Maybe take some time to actually think through, because sometimes you feel your passion come back. And I've definitely been there myself, where I've felt like burnt out, and I'm like, do I really want to keep doing this? And by giving yourself a little recharge and like think about new projects, or maybe a different shift to your career, even though it's the same, like you could be in the dog training space, but maybe do something else, or to concentrate on a different type of case you want to take on more of. That's where that time can shift, and allows you to, again, put creative energy into that, so that recharges that sort of passion bank account that you have, right?
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So it's January, New Year. Are there any trends, either in the dog training space or the
Mhm.
small business space, that you're paying attention to?
Definitely. And I'm always paying attention to it, because I think there's a lot we need to stay ahead of, to remain relevant and successful. So I think 2024 is going to bring a lot of what we saw in 2023, but with AI, of course, bringing a lot of new things to the table, in good ways and bad ways. I think it's helpful for a lot of trainers to get, it's amazing. You can get a training plan. You just ask AI, go on Chat GPT. It's actually quite good. I mean, there's
Wow.
things that are not good, but there's a lot that's actually very accurate. And so it's going to streamline the work process, the workflows, I think, for a lot of trainers. But in the same time, it's creating a lot of savvy consumers. So pet guardians or people that would hire a trainer, or any in any business really for that matter, is you're seeing this trend of much more savvy consumers because they can research and get that information at a much higher level now online. And I think also you're seeing what I would like consider micro learning. So you have all of these, if people know how to set the algorithms right on their social media feeds, and know who to follow, and starts, of course, the app starts spitting more of that content towards you, is you get these little moments of micro learning. And so I've had clients in like Pakistan and Norway and these places where there's no trainers, none of the pop culture books or anything like that, but it's all on social media. And they are super savvy about all the information. They know all these techniques and these, protocols that some trainers don't even know. And it's because they've micro learned it on TikTok or Instagram because of all the trainers they follow. And all those trainers are, learning about it themselves or talking about it. So these little 30-second, 1 minute reels are feeding all these consumers all this information. Now, where the business comes in, just like before, is people don't know how to curate that and put it into one major learning component or content themselves. So in a sense, they're getting little 30-second micro clips of a larger piece of information that they need to know to really tackle the problem that they're having, regardless of the business you're in. And that's where we come in as business owners or as trainers. We help them and put that all into one package, and that's what we're selling. And here's the thing too: some people, they already know what to do. They have all of that information. They just don't know how to put all those puzzle pieces together. So they actually know all of the information they need. It's just in different places in their head. They don't know how to systematically put it in place. So that's a significant trend I think we're going to see in 2024 is and beyond, is helping our savvy consumers piece all of that together to the product that they need to solve their issue. And if we're good at that and we recognize that, and recognize that we're going to be talking to people that think they know it all, and maybe they do, we just have to put it together and then
Yeah, but
have that message come across.
that is a huge change because I think
Mm-hmm.
in years past, 5 years ago, not that long ago, it was
Mm-hmm.
enough to share a few smart, practical, tips or, training techniques or, whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is. Uh, and people would be impressed and they'd feel like they got their money's worth. But today, they're getting that on TikTok. They're getting that in all these
Yeah.
places. There's lots of techniques floating around. You could get them off of one of these AIs. Really it's
Mm-hmm.
about, that point of view, that expertise, and synthesizing it into a full program that works, something that's more well-rounded. A few short, practical
Yeah.
techniques aren't going to impress like they used to.
Exactly. Exactly. If you look at like the fitness industry, same thing. You can get tons of great content online, little bits of how to squat properly or how to do this stretch or whatever it is that you're focusing on. And they might have a lot of information about how to squat and how to do this lift, but they don't know how to put it together into a full program. And the other thing too is helping people that know that stuff, and you're going to coach them on the tweaks and the nuances. So the trainer and consultant of the future is going to be working with a lot of consumers that actually are pet owners that actually know a lot. There's something wrong with their technique or something slightly off about it. So we're no longer going to be teaching them this is how you clicker train a sit or something like that, or this is how you shape or lure a particular behavior. They're going to kind of know how to do that, but maybe they're making little small errors. So we're going to be coming in and coaching that. And so that technology piece comes back into the picture, is where I think trainers and now should be using technology and leveraging that for coaching and teaching. So obviously videos online, conference calls, using software that can point out certain points of a video or something that their dog might be doing that can be very specific to the issue that they're having. I think we're going to see more of that as well,
Yeah,
because the brick and mortar businesses, they're still going to be there, but I think the bulk of the revenue is going to be much more online now.
it sounds like something that needs to get built into first conversations with new clients,
Hmm.
before maybe expect everyone to be starting at zero or near zero. And now you need to ask, like, what are you doing? How does it work? Just a lot more of those, like, what, you know, practices have you picked up and how successful are they for you? Are there nuances we need to
Hmm.
change, or, what sort of bedrock are we building on?
Yeah, yeah. I think again, just knowing what needs to be changed based on what the client is submitting us, because a lot of clients have tried something versus 10 years ago, whatever, where that's their first foray into any kind of training. They're going to a class at the local dog training facility, they're bringing their dog, they're just learning this stuff, whereas now they've done a bunch of stuff and they need to learn how to tweak it or fix what they're doing maybe slightly wrong. So yeah, there's that I think, again, recognizing that clients are going to be more advanced than they used to be, and I'm seeing it from my side. Like I since I have moved to coaching trainers and teaching trainers, I see the same thing now. Even in just 5 years, I'm seeing these young trainers come up and they're like, the knowledge is just, so much higher than what it was 5 years ago in terms of what they know and what they're, and at least in the knowledge, techniques and skill set, that's always practice. That's, needs to be practiced over time. But yeah, it's amazing. So same thing for the client load. You're going to see all these people that just need coaching and help. Now, it's not to say that you're not going to get new people that are brand new to training. Of course, those clients are always going to be there, but I do think we're going to see that shift. So, yeah, get online more and
So
let the technology help.
they get online more. Was a big trend we saw in dog training,
Hmm.
fitness, a number of other industries that can
Yeah.
do instruction online.
Hmm.
During the pandemic, it moved over there, and a lot of it stayed. But do you think it's going to continue to stay online? That trend will continue, or are people moving back much more to in person? That's a big one
I
people are waiting to see, I think.
Yeah, that's such a great question. I think it's going to be hybrid because it's definitely a skill you can learn exclusively online. But I think some people want that in-person component. They still crave that. It's similar to, when the pandemic hit, all these workshops and conferences all shut down and people started moving learning online, so online conferences and things like that. But they miss the people. They miss that human interaction, and so we saw a huge spike in workshops, in person conferences. Again, people wanting to go back to that. They missed that social aspect. So I do think that people are missing the hands-on coaching, in person, especially with something like dog training or dog behavior. It tends to make you think more hands-on, more like coaching in person. But I don't think it necessarily. It's kind of a gray area because you don't need it either. It's not like we're massage therapists where you can't do that online, obviously, right? So you can
Not yet.
teach somebody how to do maybe massage online, but you're not going to get the same experience. Dog training is a little different, but I do think there's still some craving for in-person activity.
What
So,
What's
uh,
an
you
example
know,
of what you think is a successful hybrid model? Is it like, you meet with
yeah.
the dog in person
Hmm.
once, and then you do a bunch of online sessions, and then after a month or two, you do another in person, and just have a
Hmm.
cadence like that? Do you recommend something else?
Yeah, I mean, if for aggression cases especially, I actually recommend that the first session be online because
Really?
you're going to be safer. First of all, you can't get bitten through a
Good point.
computer screen, right? But you also don't upset the dog. So if the dog has issues with people being in the home, you're not there for an hour or 90 minutes talking to the client most of the time, anyways.
Yeah.
Getting background history about the dog, you don't have to do that. So I always recommend the first consult actually be online. You get a feel for the client. They're not stressed about their dog biting you. You're there. And so I think that from a hybrid approach, it can look like that. And then you can do your next session in person. But that really does limit your client base. I mean, it really can significantly limit how many people you can see. Now, if you're in a big metropolitan area, there's usually no shortage of business. Everybody's busy, booked out many months in a lot of cases. But in a more rural area, you might not want to do just in person, or you might even consider doing a bulk of your work online. And here's the other thing I always recommend is to specialize. Find a niche that you love to do, and get known for that. Because when that's the case, everybody's going to start referring to you, right? Let's say Hanzo is the puppy specialist that works with puppies that have biting issues. It's a small market, a segment, but it's huge when you open it up to the whole world. And then if everybody starts to know Hanzo, it's like, oh, he's the guy you want to go see with the puppy biting. He's the best at it. So the next thing you know, you're going to have this robust online business, and then you can supplement that because you're going to be talking about, let's say, puppy socialization over and over and over to every single client. So you create a video, a webinar for them that they log into your site and they be able to watch Hanzo talking about that. So you don't have to keep regurgitating the same information, but you're still also giving the personal time. So be like, okay, here's what video I think you should watch. It's just me talking about puppy socialization, but I'm going to also coach you on your exact thing while you're in Bangladesh because there's no trainers there that specialize in puppies. And
Yeah.
you're known as the best. So I think that's what we'll see more of in the future. And I'm recommending a lot of that because I find the trainers that specialize, they just non-stop business. So from a business perspective, it's one of the best things you can do.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, it sounds like a good life to me. Hanging out with puppies all day, helping them
Yeah.
socialize.
Only
Get
thing with
paid
online is
for
you can't actually cuddle a puppy though. At that point, you got to have your own supply of puppies at home.
that. um, do you have any favorite business books, resources, things like that that you recommend to dog trainers starting out, or just business people starting out, or looking to level up their business in 2024?
Yeah. Well, I can't speak of 2024 books. I can speak of books from before 2024,
Of
as I'm not sure
course.
what's coming out this year. But um, I still go back to Never Split the Difference for that's it's not a dog trainer book, but it's Chris Voss is he's a former hostage FBI negotiator,
Yeah.
and he talks about negotiation skills, not just from a business standpoint. Yes, it's great from a business standpoint, and to make when you're making deals and selling things, it's a great book. But from a dog trainer perspective, and just from a life perspective, it helps you navigate those crucial conversations, those difficult conversations, like somebody holding somebody hostage. Right, that's obviously a critical conversation you're going to have in that moment. So. One of my favorites for sure because it's great from a conversational standpoint. I think that's another good one. A mindset is another good one because it talks about the growth mindset I was talking about because you can be in
Right.
a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. And it's an easy place to fall back into is a fixed, especially if you're comfortable. Once you start making a certain amount of money, you have this time. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, there's nothing wrong at all with this. Like if you want to be comfortable making a certain amount, you get this amount of time, you can spend time with your family, absolutely fine with that. But we don't want to get stagnant because with how things change and technology changes and business changes, you get stuck in a fixed mindset, it's going to catch up to you. And I know that personally as well. When I get stagnant and say, "Oh, I'm coasting along, I'm comfortable," but then the market changes or something changes in how people are shopping for dog training information. So mindset talks about that growth mindset. Like think about what you can do to expand. Constantly thinking about what you can do to improve processes, streamline things, increase revenue. All of those things we should be thinking about. Uh, you know, at a decent percentage of your year, because if you get too comfortable, then that's when the problems start to creep up on you. So, but also you should enjoy what you're doing. So take time to not like be constantly like, oh, I've got to do this. I've got to wake up in the morning and grow this and add to this. Enjoy what you have too. It's an important part. It's good. It's important to have that balance.
So I was at your Aggression in Dogs conference in the fall of last year, and I was so impressed. I absolutely loved it. I think you're doing that again this year in the fall. Anything else? How can people find out more information about you, find out about your conferences, or anything else you're doing this year that they might want to get involved in?
Sure. The easiest way to find me is aggressivedog.com. That's where all of the information about the conferences, webinars, courses, all can be found there. Articles. I have a team of writers that have just produce this wonderful library of articles if you're having trouble with your own dog, any kind of aggression issues and beyond. The conference is October 11th to 13th this year in Scottsdale, Arizona. And I'm looking forward to releasing the podcast again. I've got season 5 of the Bitey End of the Dog, which you can see the hat here, coming out we're starting episodes in late May, early June. So looking forward to that. It's all about, dog behavior in general. So yeah, those are the big things coming up this year. And stay tuned for whatever I do with this mic that I'm going to travel around.
Yeah, we want those travel logs. They sound fun.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us again and being our first guest of 2024. It was a real pleasure. And we'll have all that information in the show notes for everyone as well.
Thank you so much.